It's funny how we all want this game to be easier,
yet reluctant to use the easiest equipment in our game.
Or you couldn't care less what your equipment looks like,
but the thought of spending over £1,000 on a set of clubs that you potentially outgrow in a year doesn't really make that much sense, does it? Therefore, I bring the cheapest, easiest irons in 2024 that no one seems to be buying.
So I want to do 3 tests today, not only to build on my claims that these are incredibly easy irons, but more to give you guys a better understanding of what makes an iron easier and then what are the certain complications that might come from these so-called easy clubs.
So I'll show you where you can get these for a very good value at the end, as well as obviously the 3 tests to highlight why I think these are so forgiving and easy to use. But here's a nice little fun fact. This iron here, chunky hybrid iron, is 30 degrees loft on the 7.
And to give you some perspective, that's only half a degree stronger in loft than the P790 at 30.5.
Which kind of puts these in a category of its own, as typically a big chunky iron head that we normally see gets de-lofted a lot.
But that's necessary when we're talking about dynamic loft and spin. The bigger the head, the higher the launch. Therefore, less loft
makes a lot of sense when we're trying to get these right. But let's be honest, not all of us have a traditional swing, do we? And it's a very apt name for the Wilson Staff launch pad because it does what it says on the tin. It launches the ball high.
This might be great for some of you, this might not be great for some of you, but I do want to show you their benefits and why I think this is a great choice for a lot of you watching this video. Test 1 is all about delivery at impact and shows some of you guys that swing fast, especially if you're starting this game, this could be a great choice.
Okay, a tiny bit faster than 85 miles an hour, but you get my point. Down on the ball, low launch, relatively neutral path, peak height at 34.3. Sorry, I forgot to label them. Wilson Staff blade is the driver, the launch pad is the iron. But look, as similar as I could swing it, and I'll show you the angle of attack in a minute, higher launch, even though it's de-lofted. Because the dynamic loft is higher impact, more spin. Almost identical carry distance, but more stopping power from the launch pad, even though I swung these very similar to each other, but it's not quite a fair test.
Because even though they're the same length, I've got a graphite seniors flex shaft in the launch pad, hence why I actually felt I got more speed, 3 miles an hour more than, let's say, the Wilson Staff, with its stiff steel dynamic gold that's in it.
Number 2 is I'm not a robot, but that's why I also wanted to choose such polar opposites in terms of irons, because something that's lofted at 34 degrees compared to something that's lofted at 30 with a big head, you honestly wouldn't think would launch higher. But what happens if I had the opposite problem? What happens if I launch naturally the ball too high? Rather than do, well, this, which is what I just did there with those 2 examples, I'm now doing, well, that.
The other thing to mention, especially for that golfer that's steep and tends to hit the ground before the ball, which one's going to glide through the turf better or bounce, give you more forgiveness? Obviously this one on the right hand side, you can just see the sole on it.
Test 2, baby, forgiveness.
The bigger the head, the higher the MOI, meaning that if your ball hits here off the toe, the face won't open as much at the point of impact, which means that you maintain more ball speed off center hits, meaning higher launch, longer shots, etc. And obviously loft plays a huge part in terms of efficiency, but for a 7 iron, out the middle, even though I did catch that slightly thin, we want to see it close to 1.35, which means essentially you're getting 1.35 times the amount of club head speed you produced, therefore 120 miles an hour ball speed. Now there's many factors that affect your efficiency, loft being one, hence why driver, you're aiming for 1.5 in terms of efficiency, and a 58-degree wedge, 1.1 or even lower.
However, if I try and hit this aggressively out the toe,
I could still feel the head open at the point of impact.
And as you can see there, I nearly missed the thing, but it still does a pretty good job of trying to maintain that efficiency. And yes, I did swing a tiny bit faster, but we're not that far off what our good shot would have been in terms of distance.
Can everyone just take a slight moment to pray for my hands in the next shot? Jesus, that is absolutely painful. Now that was incredibly out the toe. And obviously we can't take spin into account in either of these shots because obviously I've got tape on the face. And apart from my hand stinging, yes, low efficiency, yet I was still able to hit the shot relatively straight. Because for the average golfer, if I got them to hit two of these side by side out the toe consistently, this would far outperform this one. But at the same time, yes, I want this test to prove that this is a very forgiving club. However, technique also plays a huge part in the amount of MOI or how much you can keep that face at the target, even on off-center shots, depending on technique. It's something I talk about a lot with my lessons because I have very good firm control of this head on the way down. I can feel it anchored between my fleshy bit under the hand here, where it's basically all in the fingers, and this right hand, this one here, very much on top of the grip. You wouldn't be able to move or twist that club even if you tried from my hands. It's why so many golfers love this strong grip, because they push down with this thumb to get that anchoring so that club doesn't want to move on the way down and certainly doesn't want to twist. However, if you lose that feeling with a weaker grip, I highly suggest this trigger finger sliding it down the grip a touch, maybe not as much as that, but rather than being under the grip here where basically it slides all over in the slot, hurting your twisting at the point of impact, push down this right hand, get that right trigger finger pointing more down the grip, and see how my knuckle there is basically whited out. That gives me some kind of leverage so that if I do hit it out the toe or not necessarily out the middle, the face doesn't want to open or close as much. So test 3, which we've left a glaring factor out from the other two tests, and that's club head speed, because club head speed normally equals more ball speed, which helps launch, which helps descent angle, which helps compression, all of these things. And this test hopefully will prove in 2024 why these pound for pound are the easiest clubs to use. I mean, that was still very much out the toe. Relatively decent stopping power. But again, for the golf at 76 miles an hour, a lot slower than ones I swung earlier, they're relatively decent numbers. And I didn't even hit that one great, yet we've gone straight and we got a decent amount of carry. However, I want to find at 75 miles an hour how easy it is for me to recreate virtually the exact same numbers, because it is achievable. However, sadly, we don't have an infinite amount of shots in our game. We got one, and that is the whole point. When it comes to obviously trying to get the game easier, what happens when you don't quite catch it? Sadly, that was way too fast. Nope. 74.3. It's nearly getting there. 75.2. Go on. Chances. Oh, very nice. Sorry, the one at the bottom is the Wilson blade, and that one's obviously the launch pad at the top there. But I've been able to manipulate the Wilson staff blade on the bottom here through technique, i.e. dynamic loft, hands pressing forward, club path, all those factors, get slightly less spin so that I can keep relatively similar peak, relatively similar descent angle. More importantly, relatively similar ball speed. But it did take 3 more shots to get those numbers, which I've now deleted. And that's putting aside the fact this is my job. I do this a lot. Therefore, I'm probably better than most when it comes to trying to change a swing, as I did there, to suit these certain clubs that I have in my hand. So 3 rounds to 0 for the Wilson staff. So why on earth would I not use these clubs for myself? And it's because they're called the launch pad, and something that I definitely don't want at my speed is more launch, because, well, conditions, wind, rain, you name it, are going to take that all over the place. And the point I'm trying to make is why we have different iron heads in our game anyway. Knowing what loft you want, knowing how much offset, knowing the kind of bounce you want on the club. Because don't get me wrong, on the good shot I'll be able to flight this lovely, but I need some launch padness throughout my range, because I'm not going to hit it always out the middle. And that's what we mean by forgiveness and control, that soft line between the launch pad, one end of the spectrum, and this blade, the other end of the spectrum. But hopefully through watching this video, you have also realised how important technique really is. So if you struggle with your ball flight being too low, or you want ultimate forgiveness, 349. Affordable Golf I saw has it cheapest at the moment, and quite a few others around 369, 379. They might have different shaft options, etc. Second hand, these go for around £200 at the moment, 210, something like that. So if you get a year and a half with these clubs, potentially outgrow them or love them and keep them, it means you've only really lost 100 odd pounds for a year and a half's worth of golf with a set of irons that potentially are going to help your scores. Guys, if you've got any questions on your golf bag or golf game, sasgolfacademy.com. Catch you guys later.